Tuia te reo Māori ki te hinengaro o te kaiako. Tuia te reo Māori ki te hinengaro o te akonga. Tuia te reo Māori ki te mātauranga tuatoru. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro. Ki roto, ki waho, tui, tui, tui tuia. E ngā iwi o ngā hau e whā. Ko hono hono mai nei tātou i te rānei, i runga i te reo karanga o ako Aotearoa. Nau mai, piki mai, haere mai. Haere mai rā ki tēnei wānanga ipurangi kia tuia te ako. So welcome everybody to today's webinar. This is the third and last in this series of Wednesday lunchtime webinars. The broad theme is titiro whakamuri, titiro whakamua, looking to the past and looking to the future. Ko taku ingoa, ko Joe Terito, ko taku manuhiri, ko Phil Alexander-Crawford. Today's webinar is Teaching Māori Learners, the potential contribution of Māori Pacific and disabled learners to the economy, focusing on Māori learners. Recently, Hanga Aro Rau released 3 white papers focusing on the importance and potential contribution of these 3 groups of priority learners to the New Zealand economy. In this session, our guest speaker, Phil, will focus particularly on Māori learners. However, firstly, I'll be asking him to speak on the brief history of work development councils, Ohumahi, particularly Hanga Aro Rau, which he leads, and then to cast an eye to the future, especially with the development of industry skills boards. Then I will come back to the white papers, particularly the Māori learner one, later in our session. So I now turn to our guest speaker, kia koe te rangatira Phil, tēnā koe, nau mai, warm greetings to you. Would you please recite your pepeha? The short version, as I said to you, not all the way from Eo. Then I will provide more information about you for our audience. Kia koe te wā, Phil.
Kia ora, kia ora. Ko whakataha te maunga, ko Waitangi te awa, ko te whiu te hapu, ko Ngā Pui te iwi, ko Tauwhara te marae, ko Phil Alexander-Crawford, tōku ingoa. Tēnā koutou I te whānau, tēnā koe e mātua Joe, and thank you so much for having me present today and share a bit of what Hanga Aro Rau, the Manufacturing, Engineering and Logistics Workforce Development Council, has been delivering for the last 4 years. So really looking forward to an open kōrero, and yeah, I'll pass it back to you. Thanks, Chief.
Ka pai, Phil. So just to let the people know a little bit more about you. So you've heard that he's one of the Māoris from up north. They're the most prolific tribe. I don't know how many thousands there are of you, Phil, you might know. You can let us know. But Phil is an experienced transformation and transition manager with an investment for impact focus. He has a history of thought leadership in the higher education world, using an akonga-centred kaupapa to improve outcomes for hapori, iwi, hapu and whānau. In addition, he has experience in engagement and solution-based co-design across multiple stakeholders and Te Tiriti o Waitangi partners, with strong communication skills honed from practicing law, lecturing, extensive governance, management roles and facilitation, and education background with bachelor degrees in law and business, as well as a master's degree focused on state education policy and Māori. Nā reira, that's fabulous. Kia ora koe, Phil. So it's good you've racked up all this experience, and which is very relevant. I note that, and welcome you, that you, the WDCs are about to undergo a demise, if you like, or close down. And before that, I'd like to maybe get you to just talk about the 6 WDCs.
So for all of us on screen and within vocational education, we're all aware that it's a dynamic, changing environment. And so with the previous government, there was the reform of vocational education, and that created te pukinga, centres of vocational excellence, and also workforce development councils. So with our present government, we're seeing some more changes. So what we had was 6 workforce development councils splitting up the industry coverage across Aotearoa, New Zealand. And at the end of December, the functions that workforce development councils have been completing for roughly about 4 years, for the last 4 years, will be transferred through to the industry skills boards. It's not a direct match because we had 6 WDCs or Ohumahi, and we are seeing 8 industry skills boards. As well as you will, presume you'll know, is that the consolidation of polytechnics and work-based learning into Te Pukenga is being reversed out. And so there will be standalone polytechs spread throughout the motu, throughout the country, as well as work-based learning moving eventually into PTE status, into private training status. So again, dynamic industry to be in, and so those changes will all happen contemporaneously, or at the, one after the other, at the end of December, the beginning of January. So for workforce development councils, we've been completing or fulfilling a number of functions. We set standards that our akonga need to achieve to achieve qualifications or standards, and we also gave advice to TEC on what to fund within each of our industries in terms of training. And the third big function is around skills leadership. So the mahi that I'll be talking to you about today and the kaupapa is embedded within all of the workforce development councils in that skills leadership function. So those functions will be transferred through to ISBs, and the ISBs will be looking to how they can, or how they wish to continue with the mahi. At the same time, of course, we're seeing polytechnics being stood up across the rohi, and so there's an opportunity or relevance of this work also locally to those polytechnics, because of course Māori, Pacific and our disabled learners are a critical part of growing New Zealand's economy and improving the wider society we live in. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview, Joe, but I'm happy to cover anything else in that space.
Phil, from memory, so can you just tell us about the other 5 WDCs? So you are the Hanga Aro Rau, and what's the English version of that again?
Yeah, so we're the manufacturing, engineering and logistics. There's also Waihanga, which is the construction. Then you've got Rangahora, Toi Mai, Toi Tu, and Mokatangata. So we've got the industry split across the 6 of us, and they're large blocks of the economy. So from a Hanga Aro Rau point of view, there's over 500,000 businesses. Over 500,000 people employed within our industries. And when you break it down, we have over 60 industries sitting under our particular umbrella. So yeah, huge coverage, huge diversity, but very much a shared kaupapa across the 6 WDCs.
And so so you all sort of, everybody's closing down by the end of this year, as we are, and then we have a whole lot of new growth or things starting again from 1st of January. So that's with the new polytechnics, that's with the new industry skills boards. So from going from 6 here to 8, that looks quite complicated. I was looking at the list of the 8 industry skills boards, and I was trying to work out how they managed to work things out. Things seem to be a bit split up rather than in whole groups. You guys seem to have a bit here and a bit there and so on.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. So as an organisation, our industries are split over 4 at this stage. It's still to be finalised, but parts of our coverage get split across 4 new ISBs. So as an organisation, we've committed to a smooth transition of our functions across to those ISBs. As part of that, we We have a draft transition plan that sits with our funder, Tertiary Education Commission, TEC, as well as having conversations, and I'd call them wānanga, with the ISBs to look at what we are handing over to them in terms of our sets of data, our insights, our reports, our strategies, and also some of our kaimahi, some of our staff will also hopefully transfer through to those ISBs as well.
Yes, but there's no automatic transfer of staff. Do people need to actually reapply, like the likes of yourself? Are you all having to reapply for positions, or are there some?
Yes, there's some positions sitting within each of the ISBs, and the ISBs are independent entities that will make their own calls as to what their structures will be and how many people they'll employ. So they're just working through that process with some of our staff at the moment. And so that will be a real asset to the new system if there are people with experience in the skills standard space and our other functions if they transfer through. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes about.
Is there anything else about your WDC that you'd like to sort of talk about before we go? I looked at your website and there's a fabulous set of data there. And I was quite impressed by your achievements. And this has happened only in 4 years.
Yeah, and great credit to my industry groups. So we have national industry advisory groups. We have an industry skills group, an ISG. We have a council. And we do over 2,000 engagements with our industries in a year. And so, yeah, coming from that and from a base or a kaupapa around te tiriti and also supporting a strong economy and priority learners. It's been a great 4 years where all of my staff have bought into that and have delivered. So again, I'm hoping that some of them will transfer through to the ISBs because they've got that experience, and some things won't change. So, for example, the both the opportunity and challenge of growing the economy through Māori, Pacific, and our disabled communities will remain the same, as well as the strength of and the opportunity that sits with the Māori economy. Those things won't change. I'm on the way to Ohumahi, where we're doing work with two industries there, the carpet industry and also the meat industry, and working with the Ohumahi Pacific Islands Trust there. And that's about helping, we're just piloting some work there, helping existing workers within those industries to develop skills that are transferable, because we know that the economy is a tough one at the moment. We are seeing job losses amongst across regions and across industries, and so what we need to do is ensure that it isn't just about looking at a portion of our workforce. It's about focusing across, including the importance of upskilling Māori Pacific, and also giving our disabled community the opportunities that they deserve. Because if we do that, that will help economic growth for those communities, but also for New Zealand as a whole.
Very good. I'm going to ask you about the 3 white papers you just alluded to. I was really pleased to see one of your publications on your website was something like advice to government on vocational education. So has that been internally received by the powers that be? Have they?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we've circulated that around what some people would know are important parts of the system, but there's also a wider audience for these types of white paper. And of course, you don't want to write things that people, one, don't read, two, don't understand, or three, they don't do anything with it. So our focus has been creating documents, thought leadership, skills leadership, that is part of a wider approach, which is just repeating the importance of those parts of our economy, Māori, Pacific, and our disabled community. And that's what we need to focus on and concentrate on and continue to advocate for over the next 5 years. We're seeing changes in the system around vocational education. We know the economy has had a difficult time, so we've just got to keep narrating and advocating for those groups. We can't back down on that, and it's really good to see. I mean, there is our Minister of Finance, the Honourable Nicola Willis, of course, most recently, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, spoke about the importance of the Māori economy, and quoting her, she recognises that, as she says, Māori are a young population, and also we know we need to do a much better job for Māori at ensuring that their skills that they need for a range of employment when they leave school. So you'll see, it's those messages are reaching, I suppose, the upper echelons of our government, and they are saying that they understand the importance of the Māori economy and of learners. And it just makes good sense, doesn't it? Because Māori and Pacific are an increasing percentage of our population, a youthful percentage, and it's one of our superpowers compared to other countries where we do have growing parts of our population. So we're very fortunate to have those. But unless we keep supporting them to develop their skills and give them opportunities for employment, and we need to talk about employment that elevates them, supports them into leadership positions, and higher paying jobs. And if we do that, then again, that's a huge benefit to the wider New Zealand economy.
By Phil, yeah, I'm glad to hear that is what she said, because those are some points that I actually read in your report, the 29-page Māori Learner Report. I was quite pleased by that the fact that we have an ageing population, so we're going to have fewer workers, and then we have this huge growing Māori population in the Pacific. I'm going to come back to the three papers globally, Phil, and we'll hone in more closely on the Māori Learner one. But can you just tell us, maybe start with the Pacific one, how you gained that information, or did you gain it all globally for all three papers? And then just talk a little bit about the Pacific one.
Yeah, sure. So some of the themes that run through the three papers are consistent, and some of the solutions or possible solutions to the challenges in there are consistent across the three papers. But each of those communities are diverse in themselves, and we recognise that. And also, the last thing we wanted was for us as to be seen as a centralised organisation that came out and told these communities what we thought, as opposed to being an enabler for their voices. So we ensured that engagement, that facilitation that we provided over the last 4 years, which culminated in things like the white papers, were truly the voice of those that informed them, and those communities themselves informed those papers. It wasn't just about us doing some sort of desktop analysis or anything like that. So we went out into the communities. That engagement was led by those particular communities as well. We contracted in people that had lived experience in each of those areas of Māori, Pacific and disabled. We ensured that we had advisory groups for each that informed and also we could test our eventual white papers with. And most importantly, or equally important, was it's like te tiriti, it's that promise from two different groups to each other to create something that is better than what it would be separate. So we did exactly the same thing where we engaged with non-Māori, non-Pacific, non-disabled industry and employers to help build these papers as well, because there's no use us just talking to ourselves. Although there are employers and industry that are Māori and Pacific and from our disabled community, the majority aren't. And so the messaging that I've always stressed with my staff is that we need to convert others, we need to convince others of the benefits of working with the Māori economy, supporting the Māori economy, removing barriers for their existing staff and new staff to be a stronger part of their industry. And so we made sure we walked that fine line between listening to the feedback from mainstream industry, but also advocating for the benefits through to them. And that's the whole messaging I guess I'm trying to get across in this presentation is we do have a different government from the previous government. And so we need to look at how we narrate our kaupapa. The kaupapa doesn't change, but the narrative needs to.
Okay. With the Pacific one in particular, are there any particular outstanding points or highlights that or things specific to the Pacific people that sets them apart from the Māori and the disabled group? Are there things that stand out in your mind in terms of that study?
Yeah, in terms of the Pacific one, we were the largest. Manufacturing was the largest employer of Pacific people in New Zealand, and it won't be any secret or surprise to those on screen that one of the biggest things that haven't changed within manufacturing enough is the opportunities for our Pacific people to move off the factory floor and into higher skilled and leadership roles. And so when you look at a specific industry and the makeup of it, some of the barriers and also the challenges and solutions are quite bespoke to those industries. So for example, with manufacturing, we've worked really hard, and my staff have worked really hard with industry, particularly in manufacturing, to look at how those leadership opportunities can be better created, how those additional skills, the growth of transferable skills are supported in the workplace. And credit to so many of our employers where they've bought into that and have really supported that. And we're seeing the benefits of that coming through in terms of retaining staff, ensuring that those staff have greater employment opportunities if a workplace closes, as well as overall productivity improving. Had some great examples this year. Ports of Auckland have got a really strong Pacific strategy. So the white paper is not about writing the strategy for employers, but it's to identify some real actions that employers can put in play that will support growing their workforce as well as retaining them. In a lot of manufacturers, one of the biggest recruitment strategies has been via the whānau. So where you will find many generations of the same Pacific community whānau in the workplace, and that is word of mouth. The similar thing, again, referring to the Ports of Auckland, where you will see someone from the Pacific community recruiting someone else and bringing them in. And so a lot of employers are starting to realise the strength of a family-based environment. I'm thinking of some of the logistics companies that I've visited. It's exactly the same thing around recruitment and retention, and employers are getting better at identifying culturally appropriate ways of engaging with their staff and supporting them to feel part of the business and therefore more likely to stay.
Thank you very much, Phil. That's good. Now I'm going to talk about turn our focus on the disabled learners project, for want of a better term than disabled. That's the term that's used by the government. Can you tell us, again, a similar question, anything particular about this group of learners?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think where some organisations go wrong in this space, because we're a mainstream organisation, yes, we have a commitment to honour Te Tiriti, and for us, it's been as much a learning curve as what it would be for any employer, and so we needed to ensure that we identified the specific barriers, and that takes a bit of bravery to do that. But then look at the solutions, and I know we did that for all three groups of opportunity. But for our disabled community, they were really clear. So our advisory group was really clear around making sure that the report was written for the audience that needed to be engaged with, which was not the disabled community, because the disabled community know what's through lived experience what's in that report. It was ensuring that it could connect with industry and employers and the wider mainstream system to highlight the barriers and then provide some solutions. So flying on from that white paper has been a guide. There was a short guide, and now we're in the process of creating a larger piece which will help employers overcome. Quite often it's not the barriers that the disabled community have, it's the barriers that are created in the minds of employers as to why I would not employ a disabled person because of A, B, or C. So what we're focusing on is providing strategies around recruitment, retention, and skill development, but also acknowledging that some of these perceived barriers are simply that, they're perceived, and employers and industry need to learn that, and they will benefit from a stronger workforce, because of course employing people with disabilities has a huge benefit to diversity. Therefore they may bring so for example the neurodiverse as well as disabled communities bring huge skills that may not exist in a business, an existing business. So yeah, and the flexibility that you can give to your workplace can be built off the need to or the benefits of providing more flexibility to those workers with disabilities. So the benefits aren't just to the communities that we're advocating for, Māori, Pacific, and our disabled communities. It's also to the wider workplace and other workers in that environment as well.
Very good. So, so it's largely about the perception on behalf of the employers themselves, rather than barriers to the actual job seekers. What sort of percentages do we have of learners, for starters? Do you know any of disabled or tangata whaikaha learners? Do you know have any idea of the percentages of them in the?
Yeah, one of the weaknesses that the system has at the moment is around data of those with disabilities within the workplace, but I suspect people on screen, including myself, have recognised over the years that we have disabilities that are not recognised, either self-identified or otherwise within our learning environments or the workplace. The number of times employers, maybe I've done a conference presentation, everything from the tractor conference through to the ports, through to manufacturing. The number of times employers have come to me, business owners, after the conference and said, actually, I'm dyslexic, or I totally failed at school because of X, Y, Z, or I have a son or a daughter that has some sort of disability, so I understand what you're saying. So these are people that, even for them, at times, it's been difficult for them to acknowledge their own disabilities, but they've succeeded. They have some of the biggest businesses in the country, but wouldn't fit into a box of what some people would call normal, and I put those very much in inverted commas, whatever that's meant to mean. So it's been so invigorating hearing from those business owners, those employers in industry that have directly, as they have come up to me after those workshops. So yeah, big opportunity, and it's definitely a group that needs to focus on it. Saying about the stats, what we've surmised is that if you relied on some of the stats around the percentage of akonga within our learning organisations, such as university, polytechnics, etc., sitting at around 20%, I would say a minimum of 20% of our workers within our workplaces have a disability. Of course, self-identifying that you have a disability, there's quite a disincentive at the moment to do that in many workplaces, because people worry about being treated differently, or that will make their employment vulnerable. So that in itself is a barrier. So that's not about the person's situation. That's about prejudice and bias, that they're not self-identifying. Yeah.
Might I say that the late Te Huirangi Waikere Puru at a conference about 5 years ago or longer said that for Māori to not be able to speak our language is a disability. He regarded it as a hauātanga for us as Māori not to be able to speak our language. So there are those sorts of disabilities. Ka pai, Phil, I might switch now back to the, more specifically again, to the Māori learner paper that you've written. You can just talk freely about that, and I've got some things that I might focus on if you run out of steam. Tell us a little bit about it.
Kia ora, Joe. Yeah. So firstly, credit to my team, plus all of those contractors and others that were involved. So I'm a CEO, so I'm a sponsor. So I've helped shepherd the project, but credit to many others, including Daryl Lambert, who was the actual lead on creating the report, and other people like Kath Fraser, who was the effectively the ghostwriter on it, so to pull it into the shape it is now. So for us, it is about setting a narrative that the audience can relate to. So we had a wānanga at a marae in Te Awamutu 3 years ago to identify, that was with industry and mai kai mahi, to identify one, the audience, and two, the approach that we'd take. So it's really important, because I think some academic papers as well, and I've put myself in that academic line to a certain extent, And other government papers talk to themselves rather than to audiences that you really need to convert and bring across to the right side. So our focus was being able to relate to those in positions of power in relation to the economy, as well as business and industry. So the goal that we set for our Māori workforce development over the last 4 years is he pukinga tangata, he pikinga taumata hei oranga mahi. So more Māori with higher skills and higher paid jobs and improved employment opportunities. So that was really deliberate. So it doesn't talk about equity. It doesn't talk about supporting cultural identity. It doesn't support about values or tikanga. But what we know is that many people only read the front page, and then there'll be another group that goes on to the next page, and then there'll be a lesser group that goes further into the document. So for us, connecting with the audience, we needed to be able to relate it to goals that they could relate to, they could understand, and hopefully would read on and eventually buy into what we're proposing. And there are many Māori, non-Pacific, and also employers that do believe in this kaupapa, but we need to convert more and more because they are a critical employer of our people. So we broke down that overall heading, more Māori with higher skills and higher paid jobs and improved employment opportunities. We broke it down into a set of parts, and so one part is the Māori economy, and I've already spoken about the importance of that. Representation, so Māori need to be represented at all levels of organisations, business, and in the community. And you know, we've seen with different results that representation challenge over the last week. And over the weekend with our local body elections. Attraction, retention, and fit. So in good times, of course, attracting and retaining our staff is at the top of the list for our employers. And so we've tried to change the conversation to say, well, in the tougher times, take a longer view and go, the economy will turn around. Will improve, and you'll be back to the same situation where you'll be looking for staff again. So why not focus now on trying to retain your staff? Quals and training gaps. There's gaps that we know across the economy, across industry, in training and quals, and so there's a real focus within the white paper on that. Understanding Māori akonga, so understanding the similarities but also the differences, both from other parts of the community, but also locations. Like in Taitokoro, it's a very, in some ways, it's a very different economy, and as Joe referred to in the introduction, it can be a very different cultural makeup from what it is in Ōtepoti here, Dunedin. So it's understanding those learners, and it's basic for me. It's basic whakawhanaungatanga, because if you use that principle and you understand your workers in your employment and you use whakawhanaungatanga, then you are going to improve outcomes, retention, and those kaimahi are going to be a lot happier within the workplace, and hopefully will gain higher skills, better paid jobs, and therefore improve their employment opportunities. A big one, of course, is supporting cultural identity in the workplace, and that flows through both the Māori workforce paper but also the Pacific White Paper. And so we did a lot of work with our own staff, but also with employers around understanding the need for that cultural identity. And of course, some employers do already understand that, and they're getting the benefits of that. Again, referring to, actually I'll refer to the Warehouse Group, visited their site in Auckland, and it was amazing what they were doing to work with their different Pacific communities, Māori communities within their workplace. Transitions. So there's a big portion in there about transitions. We know that from we know NCA level achievement levels are a lot lower for Māori and Pacific, but also the transition from secondary school through to employment or higher training. There's another drop off there. We know in difficult economic times where unemployment rates increase, we know that Māori and Pacific get hit a lot harder, up to 100% difference between on unemployment rates. So we know that those transitions, not only from learning to learning, but also from learning to employment to learning again, are critical. So we cover a lot of that in there. Values and tikanga, and again, I know that I'd be probably talking to the converted on screen, but this is what I talk to industry about on a daily, if not a half daily basis. If you're a values-led business, then you're going to be more successful. And that's not just about retaining staff, that's also creating values of innovation, of adaptability, and that can be built off tikanga. And so it's the narrative, it's connecting it through, and that's what we need to do to be able to connect through to this government and their priorities. And then we had a large piece which was around the government's role in this. As I've stressed, I believe that industry and employers are a huge part of achieving greater outcomes for Māori, Pacific and our disabled community, but the government does play a key role in this. And I'd add into that, we are moving to a regional polytechnic system across the motu, across the country, and so we need to be holding those polytechnics to account to support their communities. And so if you'll see it within the within their websites as they get stood up, a commitment to communities. So we just need to ensure that we engage with them to drive forward what will benefit not just the polytechnic, but through enrolments, but also that the polytechnic's key role about supporting the economic growth in the communities that they will be regionally connected to. So that's a quick summary of what's included in there. So the Māori economy, representation, attraction, retention and fit, quals and training gaps, understanding Māori akonga, supporting cultural identity in the workplace, transitions, values and tikanga, and the government's role. Hence why I got so long, Joe.
That is really good. Phil, can you just, for the sake of the viewers and listeners, can you just read out the title of the Māori learner paper, or do you know it in your head? Just so people can look for it.
Yeah, he pukinga tangata, he pikinga taumata hei oranga mahi. So that's the objective. But if you wanted to find it, just type in Hanga Aro Rau and go to our website, because there's a whole lot of stuff on there. Yeah, there's a huge amount of stuff on there, including the growth in the Māori economy. There's a lot of material in there, but also a lot of work that we have provided to industry around building skills, building their businesses and growing. Thanks, John. I see it's come up. So it's sitting in there.
Very good. So, if we can just invite people to go there. I think these are good reads. I think they're essential reads for those of us working in tertiary education. I want to come back to page 9 in your page 8, page 9 in your report, and come back to the Māori economy thing and just read out some of what you've written there, because it's really significant. You say the Māori economy is growing. Māori have a long history in international and domestic trade and business. 20 years ago, the Māori economy was worth about 16 billion. Today, the Māori economy is a 70 billion sector. So that's from 16 billion 20 years ago to 70 billion, forecast to be worth an estimated 100 billion by 2030. So the Māori economy comprises 57% firm ownership, 9,800 firms, so on. But those are quite significant statistics there. And so, so you're working right within, you're actually contributing. Your WDC and the other WDCs are all contributing to the economy. And that's really your point about. And I remember when you spoke at the Northern Hub forum earlier in the year, I think that's the one that that was a point that really stood out for me. You were just saying how the tangata whaikaha, the disabled, Māori and Pacific communities, learners, potentially have, and it is entitled by your titled in your paper, have a huge potential contribution to make to our economy.
Kia ora. Yeah, and again, I'd quote the Minister of Finance, the Honourable Nicola Willis: when the Māori economy succeeds, the economy succeeds. So there is that narrative already within government around the importance of the Māori economy, and so it's making sure that when we are arguing for greater access for Māori, Pacific and our disabled communities, we make sure our narratives connect through to policy. That's not about compromising our kaupapa or our values. That is just about changing the narrative. And as Nahiwi Tomoana from Ngāti Kānunu told me many years ago, it's about pivoting. It's not pivoting your intention or your commitment. It's instead pivoting your communication, which is 101 business. So that's all I'm encouraging people to do, because we need to keep pushing and connecting this kaupapa. We can't hold back, but we do need to change the narrative so it connects through to government priorities. And the economy needs to grow. It's a really difficult time, and unfortunately, or I don't want to play it down, but it has a disproportionate effect on Māori, Pacific and our disabled communities when the economy tanks. So I'm not saying it's tanked. Some people would describe it as that, but it's not doing as well as what it needs to.
Hi, Phil. Thank you, John Milne, for putting that link to Hanga Aro Rau and the publications into our chat. I'm going to jump to the representation one, Phil, and I'm looking at page 12, where it says your title is Representation at All Levels. New Zealand suffers from a persistent disparity of social and economic outcomes between Māori and non-Māori, despite decades of policies to close the gap. One explanation is that Māori are often not part of the design phase, and you have a quote there from an iwi leader, 2024, maybe it was Ngahiwi Tomoana. It's the follow-through. They will always say they are consulting, but who are they talking to, and are they representative of this entire sector, and what are they doing after hearing the feedback? And there's another one further down. It says, it's about open and transparent recruitment processes for representative leadership. This starts at or before the design phase, not afterwards. Quote, we want to select our own representatives, iwi endorsed, not Crown appointed. That was from a Māori industry rep, 2024. So, we hear this all the time in terms of consultation. And you've got another one. Strategic appointment of Māori leaders with mana and education could also provide an avenue to include and incorporate design feedback from all educational sectors, including universities and wānanga. Closer ties avoid duplication and support ākonga transition. So I was just digging a little bit deeper. Those things that caught my eye. The other one on page, do you want to comment on that? Would you like to comment on that? I'll just jump to another one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we can all make that mistake. So I was in a hui over the last day and a half. It wasn't within vocational education, but we can all make the same mistakes. And we were sitting around a table discussing extending the tent pegs of that organisation, and someone said, "Oh, that's good. We're all 50 plus, and we're talking about solutions for those that are under 25." And it was a good reminder that we can all make that mistake about trying to speak on other people's behalf or another portion of the community, and the same thing would apply within Māori. There's diversity within Māori, both geographical, cultural, and political. But it's making sure that you move. My view is you move away from consulting to actually engaging. So making sure that you engage with communities and not consult. One approach that we've used over the last 4 years, and I believe has been successful, is about testing. So we are well equipped in the vocational standard setting space. So to try and get communities up to speed with the micro detail of standard setting would just churn so much time. So what we've focused on is coming up with proposed solutions and then truly, honestly testing that with those communities to say, are we on the right track, or are we just blowing blue smoke? And so we've taken that approach, and I think that's an approach organisations can take. Quite often organisations will say, well, we struggle to get Māori or Pacific or other parts of our community onto our boards at governance or in terms of employment, etc. But there's ways of overcoming that, and I think we've just got to try harder.
On page 14, these page things aren't working properly. Anyway, it's the section for improving attraction, progression, and productivity, and you've covered this a bit. The right skills at the right time. A key challenge for Māori industry, as for all industry, is the shortage of skilled and qualified workers. A compounding factor is our ageing workforce, with not enough new, young workers coming in to replace those ageing out. We have a bullet point. We have amongst the highest rates of employees aged over 55 years in the OECD, expected to rise further in the coming years. So at 2018, it was 27% of the national workforce, and it looks like it's increasing. Meanwhile, we have a very young Māori population. In 2018, 32% of us were aged under 15. So we've got this aging population. So to me, this adds it adds to your claim, if you like, that Māori can contribute really well, like Pacific. We are youthful. A lot of people are sort of going offshore. So our young people, so the thing is to value our young Māori, young Pacific, young tangata whaikaha learners as they're coming through. And realising that they, as we get older and older, they're the ones coming through because we have an ageing working population. Do you want to comment on that further, Phil?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Joe. I'll use the same comments that I used at the Tractor Conference, which was one of the first conferences I spoke at, and that was really interesting. For a whole range of reasons. And so I got everyone to identify how old they were, self-identify. And so I said, if you're in your 40s now, who do you think's going to buy your business? Because when you're in business, you have a range of goals. One, most businesses and employers want to employ people because they know that's a benefit not only to their business but also the wise society. So truly, time and time again, that's been reinforced with my contact with industry. The second reason is it creates an income, not only for themselves, but their whānau and to those that work for them. But the third one is to build up goodwill and to sell the business. Now, to those in their 40s now, the likely groups, or the increasingly likely groups that will buy businesses in 20 years' time will be Māori and Pacific. Why? Because those young people of today will become skilled and will be in the position to buy businesses in 20 years' time. So it's not just an investment for improved macro economy. It's also for business owners the ability to grow their possibility of selling their business, because that's what happens. People sell their business, and one of the problems with such an aging workforce that we do have, because some businesses, the average that we're involved in, some industries, the average age is late 50s. That's the average, and so it's about filling skills gaps and improving or continuing businesses that are critical to the economy. But it's also who's going to run the businesses, who's going to manage them, who's going to own them. And so that's what we've tried to do in our narratives, is connect through to business and industry, because yes, we do have big employers, but we also have the majority of small SMEs, small, medium to level enterprises. So we've got to just keep remembering what makes up employers and industry. It is the main freights, and it is Kiwi Rail, and it's large organisations like that in Fonterra, but the majority is small, medium enterprises, and for them, they need to exit out at some stage. And with an increasing Māori and Pacific population, increasingly they will be the buyers of these businesses. These are the ones that will be the managers very, very soon. And I think there'll be a turning point where for those businesses and industry that recognise that early enough, they'll have the benefit of that. But at some stage, there'll be businesses that just have to close up shop because they have got no one to take over that business. Yeah.
Pai, Phil, and I'm looking at my screen up here because I've got your document open on my other screen, so I don't have all the stuff in my head by any means. 4.2, you talk about what will encourage rangatahi into higher education, and I guess what I'm looking at, these are things that are probably generic to everybody, but I'll just read out the ones that are standing that I've highlighted. And one is exposure to Māori industry success stories. I suppose that's modelling, and more support to learners, admin, travel, accommodation, budgeting, improved connection with schools to feed into pathway programs about preparation to enter the workforce and so on, better government and industry collaborations, including subsidised pilot programs for school leavers, so on, increased te ao Māori community support to build self-belief, aspirations. Do you want to say anything about that? Or, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory what I've said, but you might want to comment.
Yeah, the thing I'd comment on is around the need or the opportunity for organisations, employers and industry to partner with communities and ensuring that that they are part of not just later stages, or as you referred to earlier, consultation. It's actually in the design and construction of whatever we're doing. So I'll use an example where we worked with Waikato Tainui, MSD and providers, education providers in the Waikato 2 years ago, where the big focus was on supporting those that were receiving financial support, benefits, and working to transition them through to meaningful employment in meat processing and transport. And so because we tested our thinking with that iwi early on, it meant, and industry, it meant that what training was provided was actually relevant to the groups that were going to employ these rangatahi. So it was really successful. We moved 70 people to move off benefit and into meaningful employment. And I asked Flo Samuels, our lead on that, what do you think was the main thing that made the difference? And her comment or her answer was this, that what we did was we worked with those stakeholders that were the most important in here at the beginning to see what they needed, and we designed the program of support, including the education that we provided. We designed that around needs, so it was demand driven rather than supply driven, and that's what you get from working with communities. The same thing with going to Oamaru this evening for the graduation of these kaimahi coming out of, these ranga, yeah, they are kaimahi, these young kaimahi. For most of them, they've never received any qualification in their life, and so the graduation tonight is about recognising that, and that was growing because of the local connections that Oamaru Pacific Islands Association Trust have. So as a centralised organisation like mine, sure, there's an opportunity to provide skills leadership, but you've got to partner with community, and that's where the difference is. Whether it's with iwi hapu, whether it's with in the case of Oamaru, a Pacific Trust, but you've got to work with those communities, not tell them how to suck eggs. You've got to help them to create what's needed on a local level, and if you do that, you'll succeed far quicker than if you try to do it yourself.
Thank you, Phil. We have a question there in the chat, and it's from Gail Pomare. Just before I go to it, I'm just going to look at 5.2, and again, I encourage people to read this paper because some of those questions, such a question could well be answered within this paper. In 5.2, you have design features to improve training fit, and a couple of things that I've highlighted are bite-sized and transferable qualifications, such as micro-credentials, less theory and more practical delivery and assessment qualifications, pastoral care, external literacy and numeracy training. And I think I read somewhere, I don't know what the term was, but something like back teaching of literacy or something. I think because a lot of the young people come through without having gained those skills. I'll just get you to comment, if you like, on that, and we'll come to Gail Pomare's question, and I'll read it at that time. I'll read it out. But if you can just comment on this, and I'll go to you. Your te ora mo tō pātai, Gail.
Kia ora. So I'm not sure of the full makeup of everyone that's still online this afternoon, but I suspect none of those things are a surprise to all of you, that the importance of pastoral care, the importance of literacy and numeracy training, or bite sizes of learning, i.e. This is needed, but we don't need a full qualification. We just need this bit of learning at this point in time. So for all of us, that just makes sense, common sense, and also from our experience, I would think that it's no surprise. What's probably surprising is all of those things have come from industry and employers. So industry and employers understand those things are needed because they are seeing people applying for work, people already in their workplaces that have those challenges. And so employers and industry understand that, and it's about the system and those within it and around it, including employers and industry, to help support those solutions to those. So it was, I came out of the polytechnic system into this, and so I've had huge amounts of learning, but also connection with industry over the last 4 years that have taught me that that sometimes we can think that other parts of the system, such as employers and industry, don't understand these things, but they do. And so we've got to look at co-designing solutions with industry, employers, iwi, and other parts of our community. We can't just dictate as a training provider what the solutions are. And so I've got great hope that with the Polytechs again being developed into a new set of structures, that those local Polytechs will be able to connect through to the wider community and provide some solutions. But it'll never end. The challenge will never end. I mean, we haven't talked about AI and the impact or the opportunities that sits within that. But that's a topic in itself. But it's a topic in itself. But it's also it's a compulsory topic for everything that we've spoken about. So when we talk about skills development, when we talk about transferable skills, when we talk about basic literacy, we're actually talking about technology and the ability to understand and use AI and the tools that, whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT or any of the other more specialized tools that sit within that whole artificial intelligence space. It's critical that that's built into all of our thinking and approach. And then, of course, coming off that is the significance of Māori data sovereignty and making sure that the system doesn't overtake us as people, and also the cultural aspects to that as well. So a long-winded answer to you, Joe, but
that's all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to Gail's question. Thank you for patiently waiting there, Gail. I don't know if you can see it in the chat there, but she says, from a teaching perspective, what would you say are the key things to focus on when designing classroom learning that's inclusive and culturally responsive, particularly through a universal design for learning lens for Māori, Pacific, and tangata whaikaha? Did you get all that?
Yep. What a great question, Gail.
It's a neat question, yeah.
It's fantastic. Look, the first thing is, because I taught for 15 years at a Polytech and to some degree at a university level, and I remember lecturing a group. It was early on in my teaching career. Unfortunately, it wasn't early enough, and so someone fed back that what I was saying was gibberish, and it'll always stick in my mind that was the word they used, gibberish. What it taught me as I wasn't even young, but as an early lecturer, was understanding your audience, and to understand your audience and to be able to even consider designing learning for that audience, you need to understand them, and that requires a hang of a lot of homework before you even engage with any sort of whether it's a matrix of learning or whether it's however you're going to approach it. So what I think is the biggest gap that I've seen within teaching is the failure by us as kaioko, as us as teachers, as facilitators of learning, understanding who our audience are, who are our akonga. And it's no different from employers not having a full enough understanding of who they are employing or trying to employ or recruit. And so the first thing is to do your homework, understand who your learners could possibly be, probably be, understanding there's a diversity of learning. For me, early on was understanding, there's a whole variety of ways of learning, and life interrupts learning as well. So ensuring that the materials cater for all learning styles. And again, it's around I'm very relationship based, so building those relationships with those learners very early on. And I'm sure this is not news to anyone on screen, but I'm just sharing that initial, I suppose, phase one of how I'd approach it. I think there's also needing to contextualize your teaching within the environment that you operate. So I've taught in New Zealand, and I've also taught in China, and the topic's been commercial law. So in both environments, it was trying. Once I've worked through that first phase of understanding the audience, it was then about looking at relating the learning to their particular context. So, of course, China has some similarities, New Zealand, but there's some big differences as well. So again, switching to what was relevant to a 19-year-old Chinese student that was still living at home with their mum and dad, and what were their aspirations by doing the course. And again, that varied. The impact scale of artificial intelligence, not only in course material, but also assessment, from a moderator. So we're a standard setter, but we also moderate. And so we're seeing providers using artificial intelligence for creating material, teaching material, but also for assessment material and marking. And there's real challenges in that. I think we're still early days, understanding how we can get some sort of consistent approach to those things. But I think one of the biggest challenges, but also the opportunities, is in the use of artificial intelligence. Why it's an opportunity is because I believe and I haven't taught for a few years, but I believe it's an opportunity to free up your time to focus in on the actual relationship and then the connection through to your learners. I would hope as a teacher or facilitator that AI would deal with some of the more mundane, cumbersome bits of it, and that would mean I'd have more time to engage on a one-on-one, depending on how large the learning group was, but to provide more bespoke services through to those learners. So those are just some gathering points. Your question was fantastic because it covers so much, and I could wax on for an hour about my own theories of or pedagogy, but it's very much based around whakawhanaungatanga, doing your own homework and preparation, and ensuring those materials connect through to those within your group, which can be very diverse. And the final one is understanding that life interrupts learning, as it does employment. And that took me a couple of years to understand that too. Life didn't revolve around me as the kaioko. Yeah. Fancy that, Phil? Anyway.
Fancy that. Ka pai, Phil, I see May has popped in a response to Gail's question. There's one particular one I like there that's maybe a little bit different, is the number 2, invite your learners to co-design and collaborate with you. Thank you.
Can I just talk to that? Because that's such a fantastic one. When I was flying in and out of China doing that commercial law paper, what I did in an assessment was that I helped, I moved them into groups of learners and had them prepare PowerPoints on a specific topic, then use those PowerPoints to teach the next cohort. And it was far more effective because it was them designing the material that and as I say, they were 19-year-old young Chinese students just out of Shanghai. So yeah, there's different methods you can do. So there was an assessment, but there was also, they created these fantastic materials I would never have been able to create. So co-design, absolutely, May. I think is a fantastic way of approaching it, and very economic with your time as well.
Thank you, Phil and May. There's another comment there which I think is quite useful, and I think we might just look at that one and we'll round off that stage too. But AW says, I've taught a diverse range of akonga. They want to know the 3 W's. What are we learning? Why are we learning it? Where is it taking us? We visit those 3 questions all through our sessions. So thank you very much for that response. That was equally, that's a lovely response as well, wasn't it, Phil?
Can I just comment on that? That was another lesson I learned, was where I'm a very global thinker. And so I want to know from here to here, give me all the detail. I did a survey with my learners and in one course, and I said, what do you want? I can't remember the specific methodology I used, but I said, and out of a class of 30, one wanted to know everything from here to here, and the other 29 wanted to know exactly that, the what, why, and when. So how are we going to be assessed? What are we being assessed on? And when are you going to assess us? Those were the 3 crucial questions. So you hit it on the dime. That's what I've experienced as well. At the same time, you're trying to obviously expand their minds a bit and understand the overall, but often they don't understand the overall until they've worked through the parts. So great learning for me.
There's some good response. We'll wind it down there. Thank you, Phil. Hoi anō, a Phil kanui taku mihi atu ki a koe, mō hau I kuhu mai, me o mātauranga, ki te whakapuaki mai, ki te katoa, ko te painga, kia rongorongo rātou I ngā āhuatanga e pāna ki a tāua ki te Māori tērā pēa, ko aroha rātou ki a tātou tamariki akonga Māori. Nā reira, kanui te mihi atu ki a koe. Thank you very much, Phil, for all your insights. I thank you, your particular WDC and all the other 5 WDCs as well as you head towards your disestablishment. We wish the best for the 8 new industry skills boards, and we wish the best for all the staff who will be becoming redundant in the next few months, and wish them the best in their search for new work. And hopefully, as you say, the economy is going to be growing and lifting up again too. Thank you for the people for your comments. Thank you, mō koutou katoa I kuhu mai. Thank you all for joining in on our webinar, becoming an audience for us. Otherwise, we'd have no one to espouse our knowledge to. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to our technicians, Alexa Smith, Catherine Leach, and Christina Cruz, and our staff of Aotearoa who've supported our Tuia Te Ako webinars over these years. This is our last and final one, so it's a farewell to you all. It's a farewell from us. Nā reira, kanui te mihi atu, te tangi atu ki a koutou katoa. Nā reira, tēnei te tangi te mihi atu ki a koutou katoa. Ko te tūmanako, ka tau mai ngā manaakitanga a te runga rawa, ki runga ki a koutou, ki runga ki a tātou katoa, I roto I ngā rā e haere atu nei. Māne e whakamāmā, ngā momaitanga, ngā pauritanga, kei runga I a tātou. Nā reira, tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou, e ngā iwi, e tau nei, I kuhu mai nei te rangi nei. Tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa.